Thank you. Good afternoon, dear forum participants. We are opening our third and final panel, and I would like to pass the words of gratitude from the speakers here on the fact that on this late Friday war day in the city, you preferred to participate in this last session of the day. Let me remind you that the title of it is that the future of financial market, innovation and technology. And those of you who attended the first session definitely remember that based on the results of voting, these are the areas in the central bank's activities were mentioned as the most important and notably the most successful. And so it is quite logical that these are the aspects that we're going to cover both in the work done by the regulator as well as in the status of the financial market. Sergey Shvetsov, the chairman of the advisory board of the Moscow Exchange, Olga Skorobogatova, first deputy governor of the Bank of Russia, Vadim Kulik, deputy chairman of the board, VTB Bank, Stanislav Bliznyuk, chairman of the board of Tinkoff Bank, and Andrei Bielev, the senior vice president in charge of Sber technology. Shall I read the list out again? I mean, it excites everybody so much. Well, thank you. I would like to also say that we have one of the representatives of the regulators, one of the heads of the infrastructure entity, and three executives representing the major financial market players, I mean the major ones, also in terms of using modern financial technologies. So we have agreed that we shall begin by giving the floor to Olga Skorobogatova, representing Central Bank, who actually some 10 years ago joined the bank, and so in a certain way this conference is dedicated to your 10-year anniversary as a length of service in the regulator organization. So what do you think about the successes and failures? Let's also mention them as well, in terms of the Megaregulator coming to be and what it is doing in this area. And in conclusion, we would ask Olga to also respond to the market players' responses and their perspectives. I should say that we've got approximately 1 hour 5 minutes, so 55 minutes. We've got 5 speakers, and so we agreed that the speakers shall follow not more than 5 minutes each. I will start stomping my feet when the time runs out, and we'll try and do as much as we can to have it as a dialogue rather than the 5 monologues. Let's begin. Thank you so much. First of all, dear colleagues, I am indeed very happy to see all of you, so many familiar faces, and I hope that everybody of you had vacations, taken some rest, and we'll start the September 1st conference as an event, not only when we are able to discuss what we've done over the past 10 years, but also what we're supposed to do over the next few years. Andrei mentioned that I've been in the central bank for 10 years. No, 9 years. So these 9 years out of 10 are all mine, let me put it this way. And having joined central bank back in 2014, the basic challenge then, and Sergey remembers it, as well as the fundamental thing, was to create the national payment card system. That was what we started out with. Let's have a presentation on the screen. It has just 3 slides in the deck. But that is the topic that I came to cover when Mrs. Nabiulina invited me, saying then, it is hardly likely that it can be done quickly, but there are no more options. As always, we always had to do 5-year plan within 3 years, so that was 5-year plan to be squeezed into just several months. And so the national payment card system functioned okay. But when I joined Central Bank, I realized that there was a lot of things to do, and why we have this presentation as payment and innovation, digitalization of financial market. Because at that point in time in 2014, coming there from a big successful commercial banks, I was already aware that the financial industry among the banks is too far ahead in terms of the payment infrastructure. And so what was necessary for the regulator to conform to the kind of pace that the financial industry so far has attained, because there was a lot of back office centralization. Vadim will let me tell a lie, because the central bank in 2014 had just one payment system, which was consisted just here, even to mention, it was 81 component payment system. Sergey also remembers it, because every component had its time and its mode of operation. We worked through 11 operational days in different operational time mode, and so apart from the national payment card system, the challenge was to transform and to recut the central bank's payment system for the sake of the players in the market. Next slide, please. Who can help me switch it? All right, yeah. So here it is. If one takes a look at the outcomes and what we've been able to do over the 9 years, we have fully redone the payment system infrastructure. Currently, this is a single centralized payment system. We have one operational time zone. Even despite the time zones that definitely remain being 11, we have organized ourselves in such a way that we are working from 1 a.m. until 21 p.m. Moscow time, irrespective of individual time zones. And so the banks, which have centralized their back offices and put on an online platform almost all of the payments, you can see that we're processing 90% in terms of the volume online, definitely noticed these changes. And I must say that this is not for nothing that I'm starting to talk about the changes in the central bank Russia's payment system. This is the heart. This is the center of the bloodstream. And I would even say that the national payment system is the bloodstream. If something happens to it, then realistically that impacts everything and everyone without any exception. The national payment card system was established in 2014, and let me remind you that we were dealing with two objectives, which was specifically to process international payment system cards and to launch the Me card. And together with the national payment card system, Vladimir Komlev is here. Great many thanks to him separately. Within a record period, we've been able to launch that system, although that was the hardest ever possible project to do. At the same time, back in 2014, we realized, although nothing predicted the kind of events that we're going through right now and the amount of sanctions, we realized that we need to have our own system for the information messages. Inside the central bank, there was a lot of debate about what do we need it for. And so the majority thought that we don't need it. There is SWIFT and everything works fine. What can happen to SWIFT? However, it happened. And the fact that we established the platform back in 2014, so right now it includes 514 participants, and non-resident entities are actively connecting the ones who want to maintain relationships. 131 resident entities from 15 countries. Our traffic grew colossally, and at the same time, having created the infrastructure with some additional reserve in it, are able to process everything without any delay. So I believe that is the great achievement by the central bank as a mega regulator. Next slide, please, dear colleagues. Out of the new systems, which may not be so evident in terms of us needing it as a life boy, but we launched it, and that helps us to solve competition issues, access to the system by the participants in the fast payment systems. That's what I'm talking to you about, because we've been piloting digital ruble as of the 1st of August. And despite the fact that we did it in the end of the 2019, in terms of the volume and the transactional statistics, we can see that every second person using this fast payment system in their transfers, and every fourth person pays via fast payment system to the vendors buying goods or services. Whenever I talk to friends or my acquaintances, nobody knows that the central bank did it. They are saying, that's a classic system. Olga, we recommend that you use it. Well, not everybody knows where I work. That is why I'm saying that realistically the system is a very good one. People can use it, and I do enjoy using it myself as well. But I must say, in a nutshell, dear colleagues, of course, over the 9 years, on the one hand, that is quite a big period, long period, I mean, from 2014, but to produce 5 major, mega difficult infrastructure projects for the whole country, on the one hand, is a very serious responsibility. On the other hand, we knew and we know that we cannot allow for the slightest glitch in the works. That is a big topic in the payment infrastructure. This is not only about innovation in certain solutions. This is stability and continuity, seamless continuity, which was joyous, last year. That was an international survey done that we are in that very, small group of people which have all the national components, if you include the national digital currency that we're currently working on. And within the next 2 years, I'm sure that it will take a very active place in the life of the people and the banks. You mean digital ruble? Yeah, we held a separate press conference about the digital ruble, so I'm not going to elaborate on the topic. I'd expect my colleagues would also say something about it. I mean, the ones who are part of the pilot run. Also speaking about other projects which are meaningful and significant for our industry, without doubt, this is the digital profile and the single biometric system. With respect to the digital profile, people voted with their feet, as they say already. We've got more than 41 million consents, which is 41 million people who used their data from the digital profile in order to be provided financial services. And 75 organizations include not only banks, that also includes insurance operators, the microfinance organizations. And so currently we are connecting already the financial platform operators in order to be able to get the data from the digital profile. We actually also launched the corporate entity, legal entity digital profile as a pilot. We kicked it off this year, and we will have a more detailed conversation about it during the FINA-Polis conference in November 8 to 10. So, biometrics, there were many projects. Not a single one really struggled out of what the central banks was able to push forward. But our achievement was that he would nevertheless, irrespective of everything, we were able to convince everybody that it should be a national system and that it should work both for the financial and non-financial market, that it should be as safe as possible for an individual. And so that approach took over. And so currently, along with the banks, we are working on various service scenarios and transaction scenarios. I'm sorry, Olga, the time is running out. All right. And so the API, we also have a discussion with our colleagues, but everybody agreed that API is what we seriously need, both on the regulatory side as well as as a guideline. But we're still continuing having an argument whether it should be an open data or an open finance. So during the FINA-Polis conference, we will have a specific discussion about the concept and the timing within which we would need to do it. Now, the next slide should be the ending one. Please, dear organizers, could you take it away? Simply because you asked me to give you a wrap-up based on the results of the general discussion. That's not going to be the only one. Yeah. It will be interesting to see whether we as a regulator is going to coincide with what we'll hear the other colleagues say. Could you add a couple of more words, Olga, about how you see the still unresolved problems or challenges in terms of the current systems functioning? Myself, being a perfectionist, I ought to say that with regard to the projects that I've listed, particularly the ones that were under the responsibility of the central bank, we have performed and overperformed all of our plans, even the ones that we didn't originally plan. It doesn't mean that we can rely on the laurels. So I believe this is a very rare case when I can say with pride that the central banks and the market players were able to cope with all such issues throughout the whole country with top quality results. Out of what we didn't manage, globally we managed everything. Once again, I shall repeat, we did more than we planned. What is it that we would like to do? What other ideas and plans we entertain? Yes, we do. But let me answer this question in the end. All right, Olga, thank you so much. Sergey Shvetsov, chairman of the Supervisory Board of the Moscow Exchange. Without commenting, I should say that Sergey's tenure in the central bank has been a longer one compared to Olga's. Well, you should take away the prompt. Just switch it off from the prompt. Could you please take the presentation from the teleprompt? Indeed, my length of service in the central bank was longer than Olga's, and I must say that it's really a great fluke for the country because we've got more and more people connected, and so Olga joined Mrs. Nabilou's team in 2014, and so indeed, without her being there, the central banks wouldn't have had potential to really have a go at it. So such a coincidence that we're currently having, as Mr. Verkhoshinsky mentioned, we are the best country in terms of digitalization, and we're not just one of the best. So it's 100% luck. Now, with respect to the future, it's much more complex, but what is generally digitalization? Largely speaking, this is access, data process, and disintermediation. So these are the 3 points that I would like to disclose more. In our case, I remember mentioning it back in September 2013, we decided that we should step away from the paper and the remote access. Yes, speed, yes, convenience, but there is Federal Law number 115, and I believe that over the next 10 years it shall cease to be a barrier, i.e. that we will be able to solve all of the issues related to the single database, and that is all going to be online, and opening accounts, access to accounts, a foreign component, all of it would enable one to much simpler cooperate, the older and new customers with the service providers compared today, although we're currently the fastest in the world. Do you talk about the personal data protection problem? No. I mean overall regulation, but money laundering in the first place. UBO, then the KYC, business verification, up to 1/3 in terms of the regulatory cost that the financial organizations have to spend is in the counter money laundering spending, and the central bank's platforms in 10 years' time will help us to say that everything has been resolved once and for all. I believe that access will change a little bit because I'm a big champion of M2M communication, because I believe that the robotics and all of the avatars for the financial sector, we will see all of the same things on the customer side. The customers will no longer interact personally with the financial market providers, will do it through an avatar platform, which would affect interfaces and the possibility for customers to do some search, because today customers go for 2, maximum 3 marketplaces or the banks, so they simply don't have any time or willingness to spend, to dedicate so much effort to it. And so data processing, sorry to say, this is something that the financial intermediaries are currently doing, the financial advisors. Well, and a financial advisor today is selling to an end customer, but what I'm talking about is the program that the end customer will buy, who on his or her behalf will interact with the financial market service vendors. So who is going to make a decision? No, customers aren't going to make decisions. Customers will entrust themselves to a software. A customer will make a choice. We'll choose a software, we'll choose its settings. So today, whenever we drive our cars, we continue using the chauffeurs. Yesterday, to drive our cars, we had to know how to repair a car. It's like when my refrigerator will order food from the grocery, smart home will order some renovation or some maintenance for appliances, and that would free human time. Overall of the human development, not only looking at the financial market, is aimed at liberating humans from spending time on this or that. So the frequency of interaction of a human being with the financial sector is going to diminish considerably, but the interaction within the financial sector is going to be much more active, thanks to avatar being on the side of the human being. Now, so what are the new things for the next 10 years? Principally, AI, artificial intelligence. Of course, the previous 10 years was all about digitalization, but these are all, a pittance compared to what will happen to the next 10-year period, a large-scale development of mechanisms, including regulatory, of interacting with artificial intelligence. Whereas today we're worried about the cybersecurity. During the next 10 years, we'll be concerned with how manageable, controllable this AI is, and won't AI turn us into the guinea pigs. So this is all about totally different challenges. And finally, disintermediations. Of course, the intermediary network will strongly change, and the digital ruble is this first tall for a totally new era, an era of a totally different separation between the marketplace in terms of the money flows. Today, the banks, they are getting, from the current accounts they hold in the central banks, because the less than 20% of the paper money in circulation, this is an extinct matter. And so the digital ruble, it is not in the banking system. It's exogenous to the banking system, and so totally different financial chains will emerge, which are going to be much cheaper to consumers, and which will bite off more and more from the banking system. And I believe that we will be facing a lot of surprises there. The drivers behind this phenomenon: experiments, technologies, international excellence, and anti-drivers, regulation and geopolitics. Why? Because regulators have a lot of abilities either to accelerate or to slow down. Olga here is about accelerating certain technologies, but the example of the 10-year-long discussion whether we need a central depository in the regulatory field, no. That is why regulators have a lot of opportunities to really push things forward or to cool things down. And another geopolitical thing, the Fork Road is very important, whether we'll be able to build new markets, BRICS plus, because the Russian market in itself is quite small. And I don't believe in an absolute currency regulation which would enable to encapsulate the internal capital and force it to exclusively work inside Russia. I believe that we shall remain part of the global market. Consequently, we need to remain attractive and competitive, but the reverse side of it is about the kind of technologies that will be inside the market, and the opportunities will be made available to our citizens. And in this sense, it is very important, in order to really make this operation inside the country nice, attractive and comfortable, in order for us to monetize our innovations, we need to be ambitious and to also include foreigners into our service offering. It could be just a little window eastward, I don't know, but in terms of the good quality monetization of our technology just within Russia would be struggling. Competition, yeah, of course, the competitive landscape may change, but there is the risk of concentration, because such things as artificial intelligence, they are quite expensive. We know the Google's ability, we know how billions of dollars went to the ChatGPT, we know that we have 2 to 3 players in the Russian market who are capable of incentivizing investments into this industry, while the rest of the 2nd to 3rd tier players will only be able to use opportunities that are given to them by the leaders. So it is very important in this country to retain competition at the first level, so as not to get encapsulated and have to deal with one single provider, because that would very strongly stifle competition. You're talking about platforms? Yes, I'm talking about platforms. All right, thank you very much. We will go back to the topic, and I would ask Andrei Belevtsev from Sber to say a word. Andrei, please. Well, thank you so much. Particularly, Sergey has mentioned very important statement, and I will try and pick up on that. I do also think that the main trend that will change everything will continue to be the AI. We all remember the statement or the phrase, Andrew Unz mentioned it in his time, that artificial intelligence is like a new electricity. But we forget why, because when electricity appeared, it was quite something for people to understand. They didn't know what to do with it, because the light in the streets was from the gas, then steam-powered vehicles, but then such changes appears as elevators and lifts, and cities changed because skyscrapers appeared, refrigerators appeared. It became possible to freeze fish, and so not only people who were living next to the sea or ocean eating fish, but people in the cities, and so the whole food consumption changed. So the generative peculiarity of the AI, in this sense, is like a new electricity that will impact everything. Many means of way of interaction between human beings, between the human beings and any organization in the first place, within our sector, are based upon the technology that we've grown used to see. Each of you can take a mobile gadget, and you cannot imagine your life without just seeing a screen and an app, because we know that within every app there is a bit of a function that we need to go for. But a little bit more than 10-year anniversary of our Megaregulator ago, we didn't have anything like that. We didn't have any apps. Our mindset was structured when we were offered to organize information in such a way, which we found quite convenient, and so we all live in it. But what if, instead of it, one could simply ask your assistant that you don't have, but who always with you, to do some work for you by saving you some time, exactly what Sergey mentioned. In the past, it was impossible. Honestly, all of the currently existing in the mass, all these assistants, overall, they're stupid. You can ask them only to do some very specific things, because if they need to think for themselves, they won't understand what needs to be done. Now, what happens with the generative AI? We are currently going towards a very strong AI because of one single reason, because absolutely any task that a human being is trying to work on, when the task itself can be phrased and worded in a natural language, as well as the answer to that problem can also be formulated in a natural human being language. But there are more convenient ways to draw this up, or less convenient ones, but any problem can be worded and solved. Now, the challenges that we will face along this journey are about, of course, some of you may recall, everybody was discussing the Moore's law and the computational capacity growing, but with the generative models, the same thing happens to them, because every year the computations double. The ones that are being invested into the biggest models, you cannot measure them with any particular figure. You know, computational capacity doubles every year. And this is the kind of trend that you don't see an end to, because we haven't felt out the kind of boundary beyond which that will produce effect, because every doubling like that creates a bigger and bigger return, and that means that we're going to invest into it further. And definitely, this kind of a possibility is not something that everyone can have access to. So we need technology players who are able to provide us with such solutions, because even ChatGPT in its first round required as much electricity as some big Russian region consumes, while understandably electricity converted into a computational capacity then by the powerful supercomputers. So that's no doubt about it. And so a separate challenge along this path, not only competition, but also the security of data that we work through the systems. And so the kind of solutions that need to be created in the country, I guess they are one of our topmost priority, because all kinds of surveys in the world are saying that only 3% of the current GDP right now is expected to come from such technologies emerging, which is bigger than Russia's share in the global GDP. So this is definitely a very powerful impact, and we must not allow ourselves to be cut off from that progress, because it would influence everything. So this is about the good stuff. And thank God that we have such capabilities. We have companies, we're all trying to go there. We can demonstrate certain successes. And thank God that we have such developers in the country which are able to create such things. But the difficult thing, let me mention a couple of words in terms of what is limiting us countrywide. Of course, we got a very low level of cloud technology applied, very low, not even 10% of the market from the point of view of cloud. What's the difference? Very simply, as soon as ChatGPT appeared in the US, during the first 2 months, hundreds of thousands of companies in the country were able to apply this technology, simply because of the fact that all of their infrastructures were put into the cloud, and the same kind of an API that we heard a bit of a teaser, that was the cloud-based API, and so integration was very quick and easy. Within just weeks, companies started using this new technology en masse. And so currently our market is not ready for that everywhere, simply because the cloud utilization, we are 8-10 years lagging behind the leaders in the industry. And in this sense, I hope that maybe our sector, as well as the regulatory efforts, will promote us to somehow liberalize this situation, covering all areas, because I believe this is very important in terms of the way the technology is going to be embraced by the market. May I ask a question? Olga, just a minute, sorry. You are currently giving us, you are talking about the whole country, or just about the Russian financial sector? The whole country. Well, simply because you set us a task not to do it like during the Communist Party meeting, but to ask questions of each other. Right, yes, I remember how it went. You are saying the right thing, and that is a bit of a pain for us developing cloud-based technologies, because we've been struggling for several years, and we do want this technology to develop and for the financial marketplace to use it. But in your mind, what is hindering it? I mean, the fact that the marketplace are not ready themselves, or the IT companies are not ready to offer a good quality, affordable service. I believe that there are no technology barriers to that. I think there are two challenges. The first one is accumulated inertia. It is there in the case of many companies who have a lot of investment in their local infrastructure over the many years, and not each of them is capable of making a long-term investment decision about fundamental migration into a cloud-based platform. That is a challenge. That is a complex thing to do. But there is also good news. This is exactly the kind of point where, within a very short period of time, we can do a lot as an import substitution and do it in a good way. If we miss it, we will be pushed back onto the track that we were following, and it will be very difficult to change things. So it will be really great not to miss it. We are ready to apply all kinds of efforts to this end. The second story, I would say, a very in-depth lack of understanding, because we somehow believe that this is not safe, this is not secure. But to see what is currently happening, maybe that should force us to think that it is much more secure, much safer, because not every company is capable of investing this kind of money and efforts in order to bring in sufficient number of people and hardware in order to protect its perimeter. Whereas in the past, everybody was thinking about how one should fence oneself in and protect from the outside. I would say many now realize that it should be the contrary, and they would never be able to face any difficulties. And possibly this is one of the kind of risks that one should also learn to entrust in someone else. So I see these two major opportunities to rethink ourselves and to switch into the cloud, simultaneously strongly accelerating economic development and all kinds of integrations, not only in the area of AI. Andrei, my question is, what kind of infrastructure solutions or decisions should be made in the government or at the level of the financial sector which would really push everybody in that direction? I believe that as far as the cloud solutions are concerned, these are the market-based solutions. The market should do that. Yeah, we're definitely not going to do that, says the central bank representative. Yes, I'm sure that the marketplace should cooperate, should pull themselves together. Yeah, the only thing that I believe that on the side of the government is just to make it known that this is a good thing, this is the trend that is going to be supported by the government. That is what is important, because if we take a look at the regulatory framework in many different sectors, we can see a lot of surprising things that have been written a long time ago. It's just that nobody had enough time to take a look at it. So maybe we should do some joint work together and think about how this could be done, not despite, but thanks to something. I mean, not in terms of the execution, but thanks to something.
Спасибо.
Thank you. Well, I would ask Vadim Kulik, Deputy Chairman of the Board of the VTB Bank. Vadim, please. Thank you so much. Well, if I may, I shall try and talk on the one hand about the forward trends, but overall, if you look over the 10-year horizon into the future, I think that we as the market will face a very probable tectonic transformation in the case of all players, from the regulators and all the way to all kinds of market players. Why I believe this is possible? Because I see four trends. First is import substitution and technology sovereignty, which eventually leads to two sub-points here. The first point is that we are, writing everything ourselves. During the 10 years, we will write down 10,000 kilometers of codes, which are going to be different from each other on the one hand, but on the other hand, for example, we are not able to put up our mobile apps into an app store. Something will happen to it, and so there could be different versions taking place, for example, whereas the nation will stop using Apple. That could be a simple way of things unfolding, while the second one, effectively, we will give our faces to somebody else, to some other companies, which, amongst other things, and here I would describe our second trend, which has previously been mentioned, a digital assistant. Certain application, certain fintech entity which may provide one with an access to these remote banking service via its applications. Something that Sergey described as an avatar. I will make it there, just give me a second. Effectively, that would turn out to be certain companies which are selling avatars to a bank. But there, on that platforms, you would also be able to buy this digital app software. And their strong competitive nature will be that they, as Sergey correctly described it, they're going to recommend not the best product in a specific bank, because right now, when we deal with such an assistant, it recommends products from my assortment because it works for me. But if you buy such an assistant from a fintech vendor, a human being will be trying to select a product that is represented on a fintech platform. But this is all a utopia until the point in time while all of the budgets and profits are in my bank, while the fintech only has the development budget. When we, as the banks, because of all of these restrictions and limitations, start understanding that we need to pass this money over on the other side so that the customer base develops, we become interested in that, the money appears over there and some sort of a turbulent, quick development ensues, which will impact not only the part of the voice assistants, but it will also impact the emerging trends in the market about different ways of interacting, including the native ones, with such a digital assistant. Right now, using the Alice app, you can do money transfers and and certain payments, about 20% of such transactions you can do via the Alice Tower. For example, pay my mom, why transfer money to my bro? And so the third trend is 3D visualization of such digital assistants in the form of a visual object. So connecting these technologies and intellect, which can recommend, the voice, which can control, and the visual artificial object that you can converse with. I cannot say whether it'll happen within 10 years, but this is principally is the area that we are, one can say, are arriving in. And so the third one is this full evolution from the point of view of the digital ruble and the digital fiat currency. So combining these platforms together will diminish the whole of the digital infrastructure, such as SWIFT and Euroclear, all of this centralized kind of stuff in terms of the payment support, strictly speaking, comes to an end, and with the development of the previously mentioned platforms, totally different ways of interaction, like in terms of the cross-border transfers for the corporates and individuals. On top of it, such digital currencies offer the opportunity to build in algorithms, which means that you can produce a lot of new products. On the one hand, of course, Sergey is right that somehow our premium profit is being cut down because of the fact that we stop earning from our current accounts, but on the other hand, we're capable of producing different kind of products. So our quality as banks in terms of the product offering is going to change. And you're not afraid of it? No. Moreover, you know, while my other colleagues sitting here are not involved in the pilot projects, I'm very hopeful to be able to produce something really cool within the next 6 months. And the next trend is also quite novel. What we see is that the regulator rethinks its role in it as well, simply because we all understand that in the foundation of all such processes, there is data, as well as the ways to exchange it. The more you have data exchange, the smarter are the models, the faster you are developing. The same thing applies for the regulatory process. In what sense? The supervision, because quality of it changes, but on the other hand, we'll also note that not only in Russia, but overall, other national central banks, first off, are rethinking the access to this data, and secondly, the regulatory mode, because largely speaking, you can fantasize completely about what do you need the risk management in the banks for, because you can put it into the central bank and by just providing the whole data to the central bank as a regulator. Understandably, this is not some kind of a utopia, like an extreme one, but nevertheless, this is the path following which, amongst other things, we can become more transparent for the regulator, incur lower level of cost to prepare our reporting, like XRL we did for the insurance, but for the banks it will happen sooner or later, right? And so all different algorithms are going to be connected to it, like the systems looking for the extremes and the anomalies. So our relationship between us as the players and the regulators would also evolve. So what I would say that we're in for some really exciting and turbulent years. Thank you. Stanislav Bliznyuk, please, Chairman of the Board of Tinkoff Bank. Hello. I think that when we talk about the future of the financial market, I would say that it really all depends loyalty, customer loyalty, because overall, customers are paying for all of this, and so if we are going to produce the kind of products that the customers are being made happy by, they're stable, reliable, they're not really falling down. That is a good system that continues to operate and quite resilient, because something happens and everything goes down, and so it will have some sort of a sensible margin in it, and again, that will bring about more competition, and that is going to push things forward. I mean, the financial market itself and the technology, at least this is the kind of the principle that we live by, and our idea is to really grow loyal customers, grow loyalty amongst these customers, and somehow to try and find a balance between investments, loyalties, and, I don't know, the shareholder expectations. But speaking about, I mean, at least the way we see it, about where innovation and technologies come from, it seems to me that there are three kind of hypotheses in here. The first, I guess, is it's just the way the life is, that there is always some kind of a change of paradigm. Some are saddened by it, we are made happy by it, and so you can look back and basically, there are so many things like that. Like NSPK, where it came from, the National Payment Card System, because Visa and MasterCard disconnected the system for half a day, and so the authorities decided that they should do something about it. And so during the previous sessions, it was also discussed, how did it happen that our hopes for the financial investors, how did it happen that we planned millions of individual investment accounts and there are 10 millions, because this paradigm took place, and you can do it just as a one click in an app, sit on your sofa at home and buy something. Last year we did have different other paradigm changes. Right now digital ruble is going on. We're living through the period when paradigms are taking place more frequently, and I feel quite happy. If you take a look at about 120 years ago, life was much more boring. 10 years ago it was boring, more boring. Yeah, everything is changing right in front of our eyes. This is what should make you feel happier. And so you should at least try and adapt to this paradigm change and convert it into some sort of a good, top-quality product for a customer. But actually, there is another second set of challenges, which is human capital, because we're always saying that we've got all the best things, or we've got something which is one of the best, blah, blah, blah. I believe that one of the reasons behind this technologically is that in Russia there is a lot of human capital. Overall, the countries where you can find technically high-grade human capital can be counted by the fingers on one of your hands. Russia is in the top 3. No, it's not the problem about it being in the top 3, because it could be 3, 4, or 5. For example, Thailand. In Thailand, it is impossible to produce a fast payment system or the local national payment card system if the local king tells them that they should have it. So the countries where you have top-quality human capital. Very few, and Russia is amongst them, should be proud of it, and I believe this is one of the reasons as to why everything is developing in such a cool way. This is one of our, instruments that can really push us forward and use this arbitrage, which is the quality and the quantity of the human capital. But effectively, this is all good. But that's not enough, due to the fact that the digitalization is really kicking off. I mean, the cloud and the computational chatbots, the rest of it, and all of the rest of the external limitations, all the rest throughout the rest of the world, that's digitalization is underway. There's a global competition in it, and on top of it, we need to substitute imports and write down 10 million codes, and all brings us to, whatchamacallit, the IT people, in a broader sense of it, I mean IT people, they're extremely expensive. And not always good quality work they churn out, and so you need to understand that tomorrow is going to be more and more difficult. The IT people are going to be more and more expensive, and the quality is going to go down. There could be 5 or 10 companies who may afford to maintain their payroll. So it is extremely important for us, to all of us, to invest into educating our youth, into training this software development engineers in a broad sense, because the more of a talented people that we're going to have who will be creating things, the more of the products that we will be able to see, not at the level of the government companies, but at the bottom, throughout this whole bunch of startups who will start pushing things forward and creating, producing by themselves, or by finding funding in an investment market. So it is extremely important to invest into developing human capital. And again, being a technologist, I'm, of course, thinking technologically about it. And the third idea, in as far as innovation technology is concerned, again, is difficult for me. Some are asking us, what are you going to do tomorrow? I mean, I can only guess, but what will happen in 5 years, hard to guess. So our approach that we follow is that all of these innovations, they're going to appear not within a specific, product or a business line. They all will emerge at a juncture of some sort. And such junctures, I mean, like in the interdisciplinary juncture, like in the science and academia or in the business. And again, speaking about the very same investments, there's also a juncture place between a technology, a product offering in terms of the finance sector, an exchange sort of instruments. It's just that all of it has been put together on a timely basis, and all of a sudden there is a new product. So we need to pay more attention. I mean, all of us, marketplace and the regulators, of course, at this kind of cross-border, mating all of this thing, because during the previous session, Anatoly Exarchov said that when the Megaregulator was being set up, there was a problem that everybody had their own fences, everybody was separated, and that was bad. The whole value, actually, comes from a synergy between different products, different natures, and whatever you've been able to produce as part of the Megaregulator, that is really cool, that is really great, but this Mega needs to be augmented further, not to dive into regulation so as to do the micromanagement around every bolt and nut. You should submit these ideas to the government. Well, I mean, I can share this as an idea, like in an open IP, well, yes, the bank's good idea, but why there is no API for a mobile operator? Why there is, I mean, you were not able to see everything because the slide was drawn from the screen. Nevertheless, thank you so much. Olga put out an intrigue, and so everybody is now waiting to see her last slide. Stanislav, thank you so much. Actually, quite accidentally, Stanislav doesn't know that for about an hour and a half I spent in the Tinkov's office. I didn't know that. You didn't. And that was not supposed to be known, because why an hour and a half? You have an office. You have a physical office. Well, I mean, today they started the school year, and the whole team, for 1 hour, live, you can see it now in recording, there was a conversation, there was a discussion about different important topics, and I was an invited speaker. That was our central university. Yeah.
То, что у вас превращается в корпоративный университет, вот эту традицию.
That thing that is being turned into the York Corporate University. Oh, no. Thanks very much for participating in it. I didn't really want to mention anything about it. Well, first of all, that definitely was not a corporate university, because corporate university, I mean, Sber has a great corporate university, executive MBA for people who have already a certain profession. Secondly, that was not our university. That was the university which specifically has this task to develop human potential starting from grade 10, 11 at school, because to do it from the fifth or fourth year in the university, everybody knows how to do that, but there's a big funnel which comes to us from the school kids, and that's where a lot is being lost. But the next thing that I appeal to everybody, do it on an open partnership with all of the employers, because the idea of making this the education which is practical, because first of all you complete academic education, then you're being hired, and then you go through additional training, nobody knows for how long, to really acquire a certain tangible skill. I'm going to go there myself now.
Да, и у меня вопрос.
Right, and so I have a question to you, Stanislav. When Tinkoff was being set up, like in your advertising slogan, it was the only one. There used to be a situation like that. But nowadays, on this panel, you are surrounded by people from the banks who have advanced themselves really very strongly into the fintech realm. And so the difference between Tinkoff and the rest of them has diminished strongly. Is this going to affect your strategy in any way? Or it won't? Does it scare you? Is it normal? You know, Sber application, remote bank, it appeared before Tinkoff put the same one out. Thank you so much.
Сбер точно появился. Навеяло
Sber definitely appeared before Tinkoff.
Свое мобильное приложение Сбер.
Yeah, mobile app, yes, you followed the Sber ones, I'm sure. Well, so, Stanislav, well, it's a very provocative question. Well, that was why I was invited to moderate the panel. Well, I still believe that we are the only one like that. Why? Because investing into the young corporate culture, love of your customer, connectivity between different business lines and platforms, it's different to copy. You can copy an activation button, but underneath it there are so many wonders that it would be difficult to understand outside of the system. The fact that many players are looking at us and are trying to really borrow something from us or improve, make things better, thank God, let them. But fundamentally, I believe that this reserve capacity or the handicap is quite big in our case, because we bring in the young, smart, creative, following science without any bureaucracy, as opposed to the rest of them. Well, apparently we are older and stupider, judging by it all.
Перестает быть томным.
No, I didn't mean it as an offense. Let me just give you one figure, just one figure that really stuns me. You know, 40% of our employees, that is their first employment. Now, who of you here can say that is the percentage that you have? Well, on the one hand, it is not easy to say it, because in order to onboard an employee, you need to invest. Everybody doesn't want to take a junior, but a senior, and at some tangible, payroll. We also have a element like that. No, in our case, we do have this kind of a paradigm that we want to hire a junior and raise him, because this will produce a great effect. This is our paradigm, but not everybody is ready enough to copy it. When they all start copying this approach that we have, then in terms of there being any handicap, I will say no, nothing is left. Everybody is like us. Vadim, wait a second. I would ask Vadim, Andrei, Sergey, and Olga will finish, because we've got 12 minutes left. Well, it seems to me that our resilience as a system in general is not that we have just one kind of Tinkoff that has got a culture and all there are young, while all the rest of us are getting closer and closer to the cemeteries. No, every organization, in fact, possesses its unique culture code, which contains within a tradition, the kind of tradition that is sought after by customers, because that is why we have this active customer base. And generally, we are enjoying income from it. And that is great that we have this competition within the system between different models and different ways of approaching a customer. Let me go back and mention it again, that it's in many ways due to our Megaregulator's office. Thanks very much. And personally, I would like to mention thanks to Olga for the fact that this technology drive that the Megaregulator has been pushing forward with over the past 10 years, being able to support us with an infrastructure, the Mir card and the national payment card system, and the acquiring is together with the QR codes that we're able to offer with the support of the central bank. And so this combination of very active players and very powerful regulator with the kind of energy that it is demonstrating makes me confident that within the next 10 years we will definitely end up being in a very nice place. Well, I think I need to respond by saying that we as the central bank, it's really the more of different and strong players we have. Yes, that is the key to success, good ones and strong ones and different ones. Having one Tinkoff is not enough. We want to have more online banks which will be able to compete with each other. Now, what Vadim is saying is absolute truth, because different banks went through different historical experience. And alongside with that, I should mention that Vladimir Verkhoshansky mentioned it during the previous panel, having come back from China. We all compare ourselves with other countries. That is normal. The online banks do that, and online and offline banks do compare themselves in between themselves, but we're definitely in the top three. I wouldn't say that we're top of the top, but definitely we're in the top three, considering all different banking formats. And speaking about the quality of services, through the mind of a customer. Not enough have been mentioned about, as Stanislav said, but one should not forget about our customers, because our clients and customers who are using our services in Russia and then travel to other countries because of different reasons, absolutely everyone. I'm not familiar with a single one who would call from over there and will come back and say that over there everything is much better, that everybody's complaining. It's not convenient. Difficult to open up an account. Yes. Somehow people are coping as far as the language barrier is concerned, but the rest of it, in terms of downgrading, downgraded financial services, overseas, our businesses, our people were not ready to face it. And so the most important thing for us is to retain the pace, the one that we've been able to achieve during the past 10 years. We need to gear it up more. Andrei, would you like to add something? Yes, I cannot but really thank Stanislav for the topic of human capital, because it's something that is very close to my heart, because the guys are really doing a great job. I think I'm going to really advertise you, because on the weekend there is a picnic that is being organized, and they're inviting everyone, and Sber is going to be playing part in it. And I believe this is a very right thing to do, because in as far as the development of the community is concerned, we all must maintain friendship. We're competing in the market, we have our products, we have our solutions, and this is the source of a positive energy in terms of the best product. But in terms of developing engineers, we need to collaborate. On September 21st, we are holding the engineering conference, and I do invite everybody to join. Yandex is going to be there. Yes, you should organize a conference in terms of the high technologies. Yeah, let's do it, and we will have a discussion over there. Does it apply to the people here in the room? Yes, of course, I extend it to the people here in the room, because we're going to have a very interesting guest, open source China leader, because the Chinese are absolutely amazing. They've been developing the outsourcing community for 10 past years. So there are things that we can discuss. So on September 21st, this person will be at the conference. Now, there are certain caveats, and I will basically make a point out of it, for 40% of juniors. That's what I want to refer to. This year is the year of big language models. Almost 1,000 developers, or over 25% of the code is being auto-generated by big models right now. So, principally speaking, the auto test being generated by the models, synthetic data is being generated by the models, caps for testing are also being generated by the models. So I'm thinking that in the next 2 years, the kind of work, useful work that the juniors can do is not going to be left. Well, I mean, that is automation. That is the trend today. And basically, taking the opportunity that today is September 1st, some years ago, we believed that the AI is a serious thing, but the creative trade, it's secure. Creativity is not going to be displaced. We took a look at the generative AI, and it made us rake our brains. So September 1st, I believe many of those who went to school, children, starting mathematics, become engineers and software developers. I fully agree that you need to establish partnership and as far as growing human capital is concerned, because if you would have a fight going on for one software developer, he would go up and pay billions, and so these people will die. If we grow, they will, he will die from enjoying it, but if we grow them and we set them on, in terms of long-term perspective, working on useful things and in great companies, we would all win from it. But as far as juniors are concerned, no, let me say it. Oh, well, if we don't have any good use for them, so that's what we'll have instead of them. Seniors, because we have this fundamental problem in the education, and that is that the employers, they are not related to educational processes. Somehow employers believe that these specialists are being brought in by the stores. Like babies, they appear from somewhere. Senior is not going to be a senior if he doesn't pass through the middle step or the junior step. Before that, of course, requirements are going to change, and the juniors that are going to be in 5 years will be different from the junior that we'll remember from 5 years ago, but they're going to be raised from school. Well, it might be a joke just for me to say that you need to really start educating them in a different way right now. Well, in terms of the openness, they have invited each other. If you're so open, maybe we can join you as well. Yeah, of course, welcome, come. You're saying open here, open there. Yes, we will enjoy it. Just ask us, just call us. Well, recently I attended a certain event where I listened to an owner of an average-sized IT company who is developing software, and that person said that they laid off 55% of their headcount, specifically junior headcount, because they have replaced them with ChatGPT. And he couldn't answer that question in terms of where the seniors are going to come if you don't work with the juniors. But he was like a messiah, speaking into the room. Think about when you are planning to put your children into a software development class. It's got to be light. That is a signal. That was an individual who is not theorizing. He's making money from it. Sergey, well, a couple of statements, not to take time from Olga. About 4 or 5 years ago, at one of the St. Petersburg economic forums, I stated that the AI in about 15 years will force us to seriously discuss 4-day-long working week. So 5 years down the road, definitely, if junior software developers are being laid off, then the taxi cab drivers, what will they do? Sergey, may I ask you a question? Wait a second. No, when I went to school, calculators, electronic calculators appeared, and people were saying you no longer have to study mathematics, but somehow many other occupations appeared. No, I mean to say that the growth of the labor productivity is really freeing the labor, but we forget about the healthcare, about education as a sector, travel industry. I believe that the software developers will find the right place. Somehow I'm not really having the slightest concern for them. Now, the last statement of mine, maybe to the regulator, I truly believe that the past 10 years breakthrough was the integration of the regulators. People are saying that it's very convenient to open up an account in a Russian bank. It's like 10 circles of hell in Dubai, right? I hear people are saying, and so once we round up these 10 years, everybody will be in a paradise. You know, why I enjoy hearing you speak. You will mention something, and then myself will have to go and do it. That's the way we had this very strange labor distribution. Yeah. But the best thing will be for Olga to say something and go and do it herself. Thank you very much for that. But when mega regulators of all the countries unite, we don't have your slide on the screen. Yeah, let's have the slide. Okay. So those who are in charge of the process have put this on a long time ago. Now, going back to the topic of mega-regulators of the countries uniting. Honestly, Sergey is right. Of course, if the regulators of at least several key countries were to be united on certain key platforms, that would have produced a totally different international infrastructure. But the problem of mindset is there because far from everybody being ready, I'm not talking about ourselves, we are ready, but not everyone is ready to go on that journey, and they are sitting and waiting. Exclusively because of political considerations, I must tell you that we are holding a lot of negotiations about merging our systems and our platforms with others because it's very difficult, easy for us to do because we know how to do it. But the response we get, it's not yet time. We need to wait. The question, what are you waiting for? Well, I mean, we're waiting for some wonder to happen. But in fact, what I think is that this kind of a discussion that took place during the BRICS conference, and first of all, several countries, new countries joined, and that the issue of creating a common infrastructure for integrating national platforms or, for example, establishing some sort of international platforms with respect to the payment unit. If I were in the BRICS, I definitely would have done it within 2 years. But let's wait and see until BRICS really gets there, because we as the central banks definitely are ready to participate in all of these initiatives. But now let's go back to the topic of our discussion. It's yet again joyous for me to see that the key things that our colleagues mentioned, I will also share a few more, but they are all reflected here, and we believe that these 4 topics, if we talk, look at it in broad brushes, definitely digital ruble, artificial intellect in different forms and shapes, data as an API as well as an open data, responding to what Stanislav mentioned, and all kinds of options or well-working legal modes that would allow to introduce innovations is the list of priorities for this year and the next 2 years to come. Additionally, about the topic that we touched, if I may, Andrei, for about next 5 minutes, because we touched upon very vibrant issues, and what I always enjoy having a discussion with the colleagues whenever we sit on the same panel. I don't know whether the people in the room notice it. I always make a note of it in my mind. We have this very partnership kind of discussion. We hear each other. And the successes of the mega regulators of the past 2 years are because of the fact that we are hearing the market. We're able to interact with it, even when we make decisions which may seem to some market players as unfavorable. We're always able to explain as to why we make this or that decision. And based on the results, at least based on the project that I mentioned previously, absolutely all of the market players currently are saying that the regulator did everything in the right way, in the timely way, and that is exactly the way it should have been done. Now, about other topics that are not present on this slide, but the ones that we've touched upon. I absolutely agree with Sergey about the federal law number 115. I think it's 5 years in a row that I've been saying it. It's about the anti-money laundering that really holds us back in terms of developing online services in all shapes and forms. Even now, when opening up a Russian bank account by a non-resident, something that is very much in demand. Many non-resident entities want it. That is a big business. We should really make the most out of it. So far, we have came up with a proxy kind of a way, but non-digital one, not a single time. Still, it is quite cumbersome. Of course, you need to come up with some sort of a standard that we will be able, at the level of different countries, to agree upon, and this way open up accounts online. Now, the second big topic, apart from the federal law number 115, that we seriously need to change within the next 12 months, I should say, and the colleagues from the bank should help us and tell us how this can best be done in terms of regulation, is what and how, whether one needs or not, whether we should do something or we shouldn't as a regulator with AI. Because AI is there, it will be there, it will remain. Many of the colleagues referred to through their cases. But the question is, should we regulate it? What kind of risks will be there? Because currently we just see the tip of the iceberg. We don't see all of the risks related to it. And we're not understanding completely how and where it will be completely used, where we don't want the AI to be applied or used. So all these issues, I believe, together with the market players, we're going to discuss about the approaches to regulation that we should follow, if at all, and of course, in the first place, as far as the customer security and safety is concerned, because the issue of trust and confidence in avatars, in assistants, to robots, you can name it differently, is the topmost issue. If a human being won't trust this, he or she won't use it. And so to ensure such a trust can be done only by the regulator together with the financial market players. Now, the next topic that my colleagues mentioned and I would like to respond, competition and what should we do something or we shouldn't do something about it. We've had this conversation in this country, which is quite a unique situation, where the banks became this really leading fintech companies who are introducing and executing things in the first place themselves, which makes us differ from America, from Europe, where many innovations are being run by the startups, fintech companies and technology providers. So the banks played this role and they really turned out a really great job, and that's why we have this great statistical digitalization. By speaking about competition, that's where risk is as well, because only major players can afford to produce big things and innovations. The middle-sized ones or small ones should either have common infrastructure that they can be connected to, or they must bring in services on the outsourced basis from the major banks, which, despite the law that we hear about, the banks won't be ready to part with the customers that they have. So I'm not trying to say that we should rewrite this paradigm, but how are we to change it? How are we to sort it out so as not to undermine the banking sector growth that is so good, but also to allow for other players to emerge and to provide services at lower tariffs and maybe even with more innovation? This is an issue that we're facing, and one of the solutions to it indeed is an open API. I myself has always been saying that I am welcoming the open data approach because it gives us a greater possibility for the big ones, small ones and medium-sized ones to compete with each other. Here we need to communicate with other industries which, like Sergey said, unfortunately are not as agile as we are and are not always ready to be innovative. But I believe that we as an industry, specifically as an industry in terms of the open data, we should contact the Minister of Digital Communication to at least try and solve this issue, to do open API following the open data model, although the majority of our players voted for the open finance. But I believe that if there is a way to do it quicker and with better quality, you don't need to delay the pleasure. By spending some time, go straight to the model that everybody finds satisfactory. And additionally, colleagues were talking about the human capital, and I believe this is the last idea, and I'm going to round up. Well, you know, in our case, the human capital is in a very specific situation nationwide. On the other hand, we have exceptionally talented people who are able to produce cool things within a very short period of time. But we, as a whole country, don't have the culture of this being done systemically according to a strategic vision. You know, we have a human being who created a wonder. Another human came by and killed that wonder. So a lot of it depends, in our case, upon personal case, and that is where we find a lot of risk, because on the one hand, when such a person is in the right place in the right time, wonders are being produced in a 5-year plan within 12 months. All of those present here know whenever they need to do something quite critical, people work overnight and they produce fantastic results. But if you don't organize this work on a systemic basis nationwide, at least within a fintech sector, it can be very easily undermined when non-professional ends up being in your ranks and doesn't want to work. So how are we to solve this issue of combining the human capital, systemic approach, the drive, the interest? I don't remember we ever discussed such a thing before, but I believe it's high time for us to put this onto our agenda. So, in a nutshell, let me finish with that, dear colleagues. Thank you, Olga, very much. Yes, we're about to wrap up. If Auzan would have been here with us, Mr. Auzan, he would have said, on top of your last comment, that is the femininity character in our industry, that we can do something together, but to scale it out, roll it out among the millions, that is the masculine property in our national culture. Well, Dick, I mean, let's take a wish for us to be able to do it. So then next year we will have this topic on our agenda. If you recall Andrei Makarov, our biggest enemy is ourselves, not the sanctions. If we stop creating obstacles for the business, everything is going to be fine. Well, I predict, reading this article titles, that the Central Banks Conference finally have identified the biggest enemy to this country. Guess who? Well, I would like to thank our speakers for such an interesting debate. I really didn't have a minute of the feeling that we exaggerated it, and that indeed the accomplishments are quite great, and there is a very common sense understanding of what needs to be done and what we need to do in order to lose what we so far have achieved as an advantage within the financial sector. Enjoy the rest of your Fridays. Thank you so much.